Welcome to the African News Review podcast, where we cut through the noise and get to the truth. I am your host, Adesoji Iginla, and each week we are here to challenge the biases, prejudices, and misinformation in the Western press about Africa. Using historical context and contemporary insights, we set the record straight and reclaim the narrative. Tune in every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we uncover the real stories and reshape the conversations about Africa. This is the African News Review podcast, reclaiming Africa's narrative, one story at a time. Yes, greetings, and welcome to another episode of African News Review. This is a platform where we consider the depiction of Africa in the Western media, and we put it to the panel to give us their take on news events. First things first, introduction. Comrade Milton Alimadi is not here today, but instead we have capable hands. His name is Kharim Ntambi, and he's the team leader for advocacy and strategic outreach with the National Unity Platform Diaspora. And he will be here to give us his take on events across the diaspora as it pertains to Africa based on depiction in the media. The sister needs no introduction, but I sure do the honors. And she is Fubara Eneli Esquire, author, Kwanzaa, A Celebration, host Rethinking Freedom, 98.5 FM, Killeen, Texas. She also co-hosts Midweek, Women and Resistance. Welcome, sister.
Thank you very much.
And welcome, Brother Kharim.
Thank you so much.
Welcome, Brother Kharim.
Thank you so much for having me.
Okay, so as is customary, the idea is to first of all gauge news where you're at. So give us the news where you're at, Brother Kharim. That will be of interest to the viewers. So you're based in DC.
In DC, so much is happening. I don't know whether you've been following what's going on in Washington, DC. President Trump and his government is still trying to tighten one of his promises, which is cleaning up. That's a song he has been singing. We are cleaning up DC. So they are trying to make sure that, they have as much support for the National Guard to come in and do the cleanup. And also there are major elections that are coming up in DC for mayor. So a couple of people have been, turning up to start running for primaries, especially from the Democratic side. So we are looking at an interesting season in 2026 come November. So many things are going to be changing right here in DC.
Okay, thank you.
Well, here in Texas, our sheriffs for different counties have been quietly signing agreements with ICE to basically come in and police our communities. So there are 3 tiers, and in some tiers it's total collaboration, and some tiers it's okay, you can have certain warrants and there's certain things that you're able to do without us. And then there are some others where, for instance, you can have access to anybody that we've already locked up for other reasons, and so on and so forth. But very quietly being done, not publicized to the people. In fact, I was talking to someone who is pretty much on top of what is happening politically in our community, and she was not aware that these agreements were being signed. Now, interestingly enough, there are some counties, because, we have counties in our state. There are some counties where those sheriffs have chosen not to sign the agreement, but there are many counties, including the one that I live in, where our sheriff has wholeheartedly just embraced, yes, ICE come in and do whatever you want. And so what we are seeing here, that Americans and any person who's living here in the U.S. or even outside of the U.S., because we clearly see Trump doesn't just intend to be dictator of the United States, he wants to be dictator of the entire universe.
Yep.
What we should be very concerned about is that with ICE, he's basically creating his own personal Gestapo, if you will. It's his own personal force that is beholden to him, not Congress, not any other governing or body of oversight. they do what he says. And apparently at this time, the purses are completely open to funding ICE initiatives. So
Wow.
we're talking about $50,000 sign-on bonuses. And we recently saw where, by her own terminology, a left-leaning journalist said she went in and applied to become an ICE officer. And she said her interview was all of like 6 minutes. She told them she could not pass a drug test. She took one anyway. And she didn't follow up on some other things that they had asked of her.
But
And
it's,
yes, she was immediately hired. And so they're throwing money at a lot of people. They are spending billions of dollars right now on surveillance tools. But this is the same country that is cutting healthcare benefits, that is gutting public education, that will not pay teachers, that quote unquote had to reduce the forces of our federal employees, including a federal emergency response, the FEMA group, right?
Yeah.
And so that when people are having very serious events happening, we actually do not have a properly running group right now to respond to those emergencies. In light of all of this, there is nothing that ICE needs or wants that is not being funded and thrown at them. It's quite interesting to see. And it is spreading throughout the land. So I'm in a red state, and we know they've been targeting quote unquote blue states and areas that have quote unquote blue mayors and so on and so forth that have a lot of people of color. But actually they are infiltrating everywhere. And Trump is setting up, in my opinion, and go back to Project 2025, he's setting up an apparatus to completely take over this country in more ways than one. And we're silent.
Okay. In terms of where I am, it's Europe, and it's all road leads to Greenland at the moment. So Germany, France, Italy, United Kingdom, Finland, Denmark, everybody is landing their planes in Greenland, ready to defend, or as they would say, activate Article 5 of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. So, bearing in mind, Mr. Trump has decided, I will tariff the entire Europe until when you agree that Greenland should be sold to the United States. So we'll see who blinks first. So that said, I will go to the first news of the day.
Can you just, if you will, really quickly here? I'm looking at the response of the world and I'm going, if there's anything that Trump's regime, that's what I'm calling it, the first time and the second time have shown me, it's that really the world comprises a lot of cowards. Because there's no reason why FIFA has not pulled out of the US. There's no reason why the Olympics have not said, hey, this is how you want to handle the entire world. We're pulling the Olympics from you, even if it means that we have to reschedule it, postpone, whatever. There's no reason why all of these other nations are not banding together. You want to be isolated, the United States of America? Great. We'll help you. There's no reason that I can. So what are you going to do? Bomb the entire world? Have at it. Because if I'm looking through my house, if I look around the room that I'm in right now, let me pick this up from it. Made in China, made in Taiwan. I'm picking up just office, little office equipment. Let me see. Where does this one say? Made in Vietnam. I'm not lying. Like literally. Of course, my iPhone was not made here. So what are we talking about here? And so unless, including all those countries that you just named, really have this also white nationalism thing going on in their heads.
Yep.
There is no reason why they are not significantly pushing back at Trump and his authoritarianism. There's no
because
reason.
What Trump has done is Trump has said the quiet parts out loud. Often for them, we're subtle about it. We put policies in place. We will say, well, it's only the policy. So But Trump is telling you, I am going out to do this, which is the stuff they do, and then do possible deniability. I mean, we saw what they're doing with regards to the ships that are leaving in Venezuela, chasing them down and seizing them. That is what the Royal Navy used to do in the transatlantic slave trade days, which is, if we cannot capture your territory, we'll steal your bounty on the seas. So you're essentially now playing out what you used to do, but unfortunately, you're doing it against each other. As they would say, it's white on white crime. So we are just basically watching.
Then you see the other ones who are complicit, because it's Qatar not the place that the oil money from Venezuela is being stored?
There we go.
Under the total control of
Mr.
the
Trump.
orange felon?
Just taking a quick break here on the African News Review podcast, but don't go anywhere. If you're enjoying our deep dive into the real stories behind the headlines, make sure to subscribe so you never miss an episode. Every Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're here to debunk the myths and bring you the truth about Africa. Want to help spread the word? Share this podcast with your friends and leave us a review. It goes a long way in helping others discover the real Africa. Without further ado, let's get back to setting the record straight. That's it. Yes. Okay. We go to our first story of the day.
Can I add on
with
that a little bit? Can I just add on that? I mean, I'm interested in seeing the tariffs and because when Trump has been talking about these tariffs, he talks about them as if people in the UK should be scared. Because at the end of the day, it's the people in the United States that are going to foot the bill. Because when those shipments come on here and they are unloaded, it's the people who are going to pay the price. The last consumer is going to be the American people. So I don't know what it means to say I'm going to increase a tariff on you, and the people right here in the US are not making noise about it. And I think there is a way the American people have slowly acquiesced to such talking points and normalized people getting away with, saying things that cannot be on the grand scheme of things substantiated. Because if you say, okay, we are going to increase a 10% tariff, give us the breakdown. How do we benefit from it? Because you don't say when the goods come in and we tax them, we are going to get a lot of money, but from who? At the end of the day, it's the consumer, the American people, that are going to be paying that. And I don't know the reason why the American media just talks about it as if Trump said he's going to put a 10% tariff on goods coming in from Europe. And then, because it's your job as the media to not only seek for the truth, but find it, live it, and give it to the people.
Good. Okay.
But only if the media is not compromised. So this is what happens when you've dumbed down your education system.
Yeah.
So I remember when, I was born here, but here in the United States, when I went back to Nigeria and I came back here, and I remember working in a fast food restaurant, and they were certain of us that they would like to put at the cash registers and others that they wouldn't, because someone would buy something for $1.25. Okay, this was 30 plus years ago. You can't buy anything at the at a fast food restaurant for that anymore. But you used to be able to get biggie fries, 99 cents plus tax. Okay.
Okay.
So you give $2 and the person at the register is counting for 30 minutes to figure out your change because they couldn't do basic math. So there were certain of us that they would put at the register. So now at fast food restaurants, what do they have? They have it where you just see pictures. You just press the picture for fry and so on and so forth. You don't count any money anymore. The machine counts everything and spits the money out and gives the change. And of course, now we're just swiping cards. So we have so dumbed down our education system that most Americans cannot comprehend what you just said, Brother Kharim. The idea of, they just feel, we're being big and bad. America first. We're putting tariffs on everybody else. But the idea of, wait a second, how does this actually work? wait a second, I'm paying more. This is a tax on me.
Mm.
And then the fact that there is no transparency anymore in government. When he's saying, oh, these are the job markets, this is what the job market looks like. This is what the unemployment rate looks like. Duh. All the checks and balances are gone. They're fudging the numbers. You can't trust anything coming out of this man's mouth.
Mm.
So, yes, when you don't have critical thinking skills, when you cannot add 1 + 1 for yourself, and the media has been bought up by the oligarchs, they tell you whatever and you buy into your whiteness. The same propaganda that allowed poor white people to go and sacrifice their lives for a system, slavery, that kept them impoverished because they were competing against free labor when most of them did not own slaves.
Mm.
But fighting to keep slavery protected their whiteness. That is the same thing that they're fighting for today. And all around Texas, when I drive to these small counties, people with no teeth, their rural hospitals are closed, their children are not. Sometimes, no, I was just in court and this woman, she did not have running water, but she's white. That's all that counts.
Speaking
I know
of that,
you're trying to get to the stories.
No. I mean, obviously, there is a correlation between what we're doing here and the stories. Is the fact that we need the role of the media, like Brother Kharim said earlier, is to inform the people, to get the news, break down the news, and give it to people in ways they can understand. But the news environment in the United States is largely compromised. Why? There was a book written in 1985 titled Manufacturing Concerns by Noam Chomsky and what's his name? Berman. And this book basically tells you what would happen when the media is owned by a few people. Allah, 2026. Look at it. Look at the platform. Look at the landscape, the media landscape in the United States at the moment. The entire landscape is owned by five consortiums. And if you check 5 consortiums, you just turn your channel across, they're basically repeating the same thing. And Trump has, with his threat and what have you, basically gotten everyone within those media networks to acquiesce to repeating their talking points, which brings me back to what Brother Kharim was saying. The talking points are now information bits for Americans because, one, the libraries are there, but they're not being funded. In fact, the books are being burnt. So if you lack critical thinking and you go into the library and everything you get in there only confirms what you already know, doesn't challenge you, Trump would basically just tell you up is down and you would say yes, or the sky is green. Who is to argue? And we continue to move on. So that said, we go to another news story that actually brings in the media, which is on Uganda. Uganda had the election on the 15th, and the Financial Times, the money paper, basically told us what we sort of thought would happen, which is Uganda imposed internet blackout in pre-election crackdown. Octogenarian President Yoweri Museveni will seek to extend his 40-year rule imposed on Thursday, which, as news will have it, is now happening. So Uganda has enforced an internet blackout ahead of Thursday's election in an ominous sign ahead of President Yoweri Museveni's bid to extend his 40-year rule. Museveni, who had been a towering political figure in East Africa since seizing power in 1986, is seeking a 7th term in office in a rerun of the fraught 2021 contest that pitted him against former pop star Robert Kyagulanyi, known as Bobby Wine. So we know now that he's been returned. Question is, did we consider that election or a coronation, as it were? Let's go to Brother Kharim first.
All right, thank you. Thank you so much. I think Ugandans saw this coming. The gentleman, Yoweri Museveni, has been there for 40 years. So they expected this. and they dubbed it a protest vote. And what happened was 2 days before the elections, the internet was shut down completely. You were in the dark. And the guidelines that had been given to the media is that you are not supposed to report what's happening at any polling station. So the Electoral Commission is the only entity that is supposed to report. So all the media has to get information from the Electoral Commission. So whether you're standing at a polling station and you're looking at what is going on and you know what they are reading out there, you have to wait for the Electoral Commission to announce what has been tallied by them. And this time around, the chairman of the Electoral Commission hasn't even bothered to read where he's been getting the numbers. He would just come and say, as of now, Museveni has like this million of votes and the other people have this. And the question has been, where are you getting those numbers? They couldn't be verified. We didn't have any instruments to check to check on, whether these people are giving us authentic numbers. To start by last year, they outsourced machines. They said we're going to have the elections by biometrics, so we are going to use these machines. And on the day of the elections, they find out that all the machines that had been imported to carry out the exercise wouldn't work. So everyone is trying to move around to figure out how all this is going to be done in the darkness without communication. They figure out that these machines are not going to work. So the chairman of the Electoral Commission says, you know what, we are going to do it manually as we have been doing. So countrywide voting started at around noon. So from noon to 5 o'clock. So in that span of time, doing manually, and you're voting three different post polling station, the numbers that are being reflected are not, you cannot get those numbers in 4 hours, in 4-5 hours. You really can't get those numbers. And unfortunately, we have no ways of verifying them because they were not announced at the respective districts. The declaration forms at polling station had been sent to the Electoral Commission to be the official arbiters to give us what's going on. No one can check that. And in total darkness, what that does is you don't know what's going on. You're living in the dark. Social media platforms up to now are still down, despite the previous pronouncements that the internet had been turned on. The social media platforms that people have been using to share videos, to share things that they saw, ballot stuffing, to show the brutality that was happening in different places. They cannot. They have them on, but they can't send no videos, no images can be sent. So that's the situation that we are in Uganda. And on top of that, you have a number of parliamentarian aspirants who are in jail. You are in jail while the vote is going on, while the campaign is going on. So those people, they have not received fairness. And on top of that, on the day of elections, you come to your leading opposition leader, you take over his premises, you hound them. He had to run to escape from them because he has tested what it means when you get abducted. He has got those near-death experiences when in 2018 he was beaten up. So right now we are looking at the people of Uganda to still demand, to stand firm and call for accountability and, denounce the fake results that were announced by the chairman of the Electoral Commission.
Okay. Wow. Sister?
This isn't just a news story for me. Uganda is over $32 billion in debt. Museveni is 81 years old. I believe the average Ugandan is under 20 years old. We saw the surges of people, women, young people, older people, men and women coming out asking for a new Uganda. We saw the brutalization by the police of journalists and of the people. And yes, when the internet went down, anybody who's followed the history of oppressive regimes knew that nothing good was going to happen. I want to take just a few seconds because we have limited time to just honor the lives of at least 20 people who have been confirmed killed since January 15th in Uganda surrounding these elections. And that is with us not even really getting the full story yet. So if we can just pause for a few seconds. In one instant, they went to a candidate's home and shot 10 people dead. There are female candidates who have been disappeared, simply don't know where they've gone. As a woman, knowing what happens to women under these circumstances, I am doubly concerned. It's one thing to get beaten up. Those scars can heal. There's the other brutality that we are often faced with. That we often don't even talk about because of all the additional stigma that comes with it. And then to make matters worse, Museveni's son, I agree with everything Brother Kharim has said, so I don't need to repeat any of that. We know that they did go and attack Bobby Wine's home. He is a legitimate candidate, so they need to quit calling him pop star and all of that stuff. Because they don't say reality star every time they talk about Trump, or when they talked about Arnold Schwarzenegger, they didn't start off with actor every time they talked about him. But they cut off his electricity, cut off his cameras, had a helicopter hovering over his house while they were breaking windows to get in. Here's the other concerning part. Museveni's son, his eldest son, who also happens to be the Minister of Defense,
General Muhovi,
has come right out publicly and said, Bobby Wine, I don't know why you thought you could ever defeat my father. And by the way, when my father is done, then it's going to be my turn. And they, like Trump, have control of the military and all the weapons and the ability to terrorize people. And so the question is, who's going to save us? We're going to have to save ourselves. And just like there was a revolution that brought in Museveni, we might have to be willing to shed a whole lot of blood to have the kind of revolution. And it's going to take some of these military people who right now feel we're eating good, we're living well, we're protected or whatever. It might have to take some of them turning on these rogues. Museveni ran a campaign on his campaign slogan was protecting the gains. The gains for whom? Where? When? Is it the land that he's stealing from people and giving to Chinese and to other foreign investors and they're padding his pockets? But we need to be very concerned. We've seen what happened in the Republic of Benin. We've seen Tanzania. We've looked at Cameroon. We see what's happening in Uganda now. I hate to put this on the shoulders of our youth, but if they don't fight back, these old people who are doing the exact opposite of what old people ancestrally would do in Africa, which is to preserve and hand over to the young. Instead, they are destroying and pillaging and stealing the future from their own. Oh my goodness. Let's move on. And now Ugandans are asking Trump to come and save them. I don't know what the hell is wrong with Africans.
It takes a special kind of individual to steal what belongs to you. Imagine Museveni is Ugandan. So basically he's stealing Uganda's money. But he thinks he's basically stealing from himself. It takes a special kind of stupid to do that and think, here's the worst part.
Wait a second. Did you see the videos that have come out? Where the paper ballots, they had rows of people sitting with a stack of paper ballots and just marking Museveni, just like, hey, Museveni, just stacks of paper.
Yeah. It's sickening. And it's like they don't learn. Every time you see one of these leaders who has been sort of supported by the West to the point where they become, like you said, protect the gains, helps protect their gains to the detriment of their people. We know how it ends, and usually doesn't end well. Mobutu is buried in Morocco for a reason. He's not buried in Congo. He's buried in Morocco for a reason, in an unmarked grave in Morocco for a reason. But people don't learn. Siad Barre had to be taken back into Somalia under secrecy in order to be buried at home. These leaders don't learn. And one final take on this from both of you, if you will. And this is the question. The question is, why is the West, if you notice all their headlines, it's normalized? Strongman this, strongman returns to power, 81-year-old. I mean, the concept of critical thinking in saying, this is strange, this is weird. None of them are holding his feet to the fire. Why do we think that is the case? Who wants to go first?
I will go first. Especially here in the US. The US has had a long time relationship with Yoweri Museveni since the early 90s. Museveni has been one of their greatest puppets, although sometimes he wants to flex and say, I'm the Pan-Africanist. But he really strengthened his relationship with the US during the Iraq and Afghanistan war, where about 90,000 Ugandans were sent to Iraq and Afghanistan to guard military bases there. So since then,
wow,
Museveni was a darling of Washington. You couldn't say nothing to him. You couldn't say nothing to Washington because he was, their partner in fighting global terrorism. So that's what they would say. What they wouldn't tell you is at whose expense. The 90,000 Ugandans who served, most of them right now are living with long-term life injuries. Some of them have died. Some of them, we are not well compensated. They are in Uganda. And there is a good number of them who joined the military that is brutalizing people. There were no programs for them for re-entry into Uganda. So you have that. So wherever America has wanted to go adventure, they would have Museveni at cheap labor. So we've been in Somalia, we've been in Afghanistan, we've been in Chad, sending us to Madagascar. Our people are all over the place. And no one is going to wag the finger because he is going to flex as they are, if you want anybody to do the hard work for you, I have my men ready to go. So until now that trends are changing, that the US is shifting to Kenya, but for all those years, Museveni has been their darling, and with that, they have made him look like this one is the stabilizer in the region, but at whose expense? So whereas you're looking at the work that he's doing in Somalia, you close your eyes to what's happening in Uganda, and I'll give an example in the DRC. As of now, Uganda is paying reparations to the DRC and the tune $235 million for plundering, for stealing resources, for killing people. So Uganda has been part of the instability, but at whose expense? Who gained from that? It has been Museveni and his cronies that have been stealing from the DRC. So that's the kind of relationship that we have been having. And to me, one of the things that are very painful has been the role of the East African community. Although it's expanding, it has no teeth. It has no teeth. You're looking at a region where a major political figure like Kizza Besigye, who was a former, presidential candidate, is been roughed up by Ugandan security operatives from Kenya, and Ruto is quiet. You're looking at a situation where Ugandan activists and Kenyan activists are being roughed up and humiliated in Tanzania. Nobody's people like Agatha Twaire, she was really, really humiliated and treated in the most humane ways in Tanzania. So nobody is going to... So it has become a revolving theme within the African countries. And the worst thing is when they come on these platforms to talk about Pan-Africanism, on how we want to grow the region, they are going to present this as something, that bounds us together. We are all in this together. They will speak with the Ubuntu spirit. But when it comes to issues of human rights and upholding democratic principles. Everyone is going to raise up their hand and say, you know what, my name is Kagame, our country is sovereign, this is Uganda, I am Museveni, we are sovereign, we don't want any interference, but you have signed onto these treaties. You have signed onto these treaties. Why wouldn't you adhere to them? Why wouldn't you respect the people that you are representing in these treaties? So the lack of teeth, you would see it with the African Union without even consideration of, okay, let us first see what's going on. On the day after the announcing of Museveni, you're congratulating him. Courtesy of who? You know, if you see the statement of former president of Nigeria, Goodluck Johnson, who was one of the observers, it's totally different from what, you know, the AU is presenting. And I'm like, okay, you guys are congratulating this guy. Courtesy of who? So there is need for us as Africans to continue holding these people accountable. And the reason why the West has not is because, you know, everyone is benefiting from the US. US has been a major donor to Uganda and other African regions. But right now, the African countries have invested a lot of money in the Afrexim Bank, which is a major donor. We should be pushing for isolation of countries like Uganda who are abusing human rights and basic democratic principles. Afrexim Bank is Uganda has a debt of over 270 euros of money. That Afrexim Bank, we have been, you know,
Wow.
they have been giving us a lot of money. And on top of that, when we talk about isolation, is that we should encourage other countries that are stable not to trade with people like Museveni. He was kicked out of AGOA. Why don't we kick him out of the African Continental Free Trade Area and say, you know what, if this is what you're doing, you are out. And then we shall see that, you know, the money has been getting in exporting his personal milk to Algeria under the African Continental Free Trade Area is stopped. So that we as Africans, we have to figure out mechanisms without waiting for, okay, let us wait for Trump, let us wait for whoever to make a statement. We as Africans have to set a standard. I think there is need for us as Africans to identify people that we think, you know, can stand for the people of this region and say we are setting a standard. If you break this standard, if you reach this standard, we are coming in. We are going to stand with the people and we shall isolate you and your regime. So that's the biggest thing, because Museveni has been flexing all over. I'll give an example. And for Museveni in that January was elected as the chairman of the non-aligned movement. So being a chairman of the non-aligned movement, nobody is going to come for the chairman because he's one of their own. And even when things happen in other countries, I'll give
and that's the point.
The best example is
it's the despots supporting each other.
Yes. Yeah. The best example is Venezuela. You know, Venezuela is part of the non-aligned movement countries.
When it
was invaded, the chairman was nowhere to be seen because he's hiding. He's getting breadcrumbs from here and there. He has been really, really having a very close relationship with Maduro until when he got hounded and ousted, and is now silent. As a chairman of the non-aligned movement, a movement that has been there for how many years? Since the 1950s. He has no official statement to defend his own people. He can't say nothing because he's a despot. He's a desperate and shameful despot who can't, you know. And even here, when President Trump announced countries on his visa restrictions, almost 75 of the countries are part of the non-aligned
We're coming to
movement.
that. Save that. We're coming to that.
I'll stop
Sister,
there
you want
for
to
now.
say something?
But so that's what we are looking.
Just really quickly, because Kharim gave a pretty broad and detailed response to that. But really quickly, to the question that he asked, Biya and Trump, what's the difference in their age? What's the difference between Museveni and Biden? What's the difference? So, I mean, Yeah, their media isn't really going to come out and make a big deal, overly so, about the ages of these dictators in Africa, to the extent that we actually see the same things happening here in the West. I mean, if Putin lives to be 100, I guess he plans to stay on.
Mm.
Of course, although the system in the UK is different, but your monarch didn't ever think that she should step down, even though her son was waiting for 50 years to succeed her. She stayed until she couldn't breathe anymore. It's just what it is. Power concedes nothing without a demand. Once people get in there and get that taste of absolute power, they don't want to go. And so no, they're not going to make a statement against that. Look at the United States Congress. What's the average age of a
senators.
congressperson, of the senator or a congressperson? I mean, yeah. So they're not going to make a lot of noise about this, because then that would be holding up a mirror to themselves.
Mm. Okay.
I think to add on
speaking
that,
of-
when it comes to places like the US Congress, you would realize that given the time some of these men have been in power, is the same time that the African despots have been. So at some point, they were very friends. They were really, really friends. They embraced them. They were their people. They knew each other. They looked at them as liberators. And now, as they are aging with them, they don't know. Now, should I just call up my elder? You look at people who really wanted this Pan-African movement. People who really were interested in looking at Africa grow. It turned out that their friends that they were, being cozy with in the 80s and the 70s have turned out to be despots. So what do? You a congressman, you have been, receiving money from a lobby firm that works for Museveni, and is a guy that you have known since the 80s. So what do? Are you going to hear from the lobby firm, or you're going to hear from a nobody? Noise. You end up being a noisemaker. These people have also built long-term relationships. The burden is on us to impress upon new leaders who are coming in, to show them that, okay, there is need for us to reestablish new working relations with the continent, because the old guard are really friendly. I'm telling you, 5 years from now, you wouldn't say nothing about Museveni in Congress. You wouldn't. First of all, they will tell you he liberated you. Second of all, they will tell you how he has been a partner in fighting global terrorism. But the question they wouldn't answer would be, at whose expense? They wouldn't tell you at whose expense. At the expense of Ugandans who have not benefited in the 38 years of Museveni's regime. At the expense of Ugandans who have been tried in kangaroo courts, in military courts. At the expense of Ugandans who are dying while giving birth. At the expense of Ugandans who are being right now detained in military detention centers. Or some of them who have been disappeared. We have not heard from some of our comrades who are abducted in 2020. So that's the price. That's the expense that this cozy relationship has.
Speaking of cozy relationship, the next story would lend itself to the idea of cozy relationship, and it's the fact that January 17, 1961, in 2026 marks 65 years since the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. And I've gone for this story in particular. And sister did remind me that it's an old article, but then there are nuggets of information in there that suggest we might have to constantly have a look at this. One is the fact that the headline says, Belgium must return tooth of murdered Congolese judge rules. So Belgian policeman has admitted taking tooth from Patrice Lumumba, body in 1961. You just think about that. That's one. So it's the fact that the tooth had been seized from a Belgian policeman who had admitted taking it while helping to dispose of his body after the politician was murdered in 1961. The Belgian government of the time, the CIA, the MI6, which is the British arm of foreign intelligence, have also been implicated. Now, talking about the implication, I would ask you to put a pin in that there is another country that often doesn't make the rule, and we wonder why. So it says Eric Van, spokesman for the Belgian Federal Prosecutor Office, said the tooth must be returned to the Democratic Republic of Congo, a former Belgian colony. He described it as a symbolic gesture since there was no absolute certainty that the tooth was Lumumba's. No DNA had been carried out. It would have destroyed it, he said. Who wants to go first? Sister.
You know, we've covered this story before. Of course, January 17th was the anniversary of the execution of Patrice Lumumba. Again, we look at the complicity, not even complicity, it's beyond complicity. We look at the way the West has treated Africa when we have leaders who actually care about us and are truly going to serve the needs of the people. They get run out, they get killed. And then when you have people like Museveni and Biya and Tinubu and the rest of them, they get coddled so that they can continue to grant them access to our resources unabated. I'm grateful that finally the one tooth, that's it, that remains of this great man Lumumba is going to be returned. I'm not sure, have they returned it yet? Because that article was from a while ago. Okay, so they have finally returned it. It's interesting when we talk about who's savage and who's a barbarian, that we often have the face of dark-skinned Black people as representing, you think of a barbarian, that's who the world says you should think of. And yet when we really look at history and look at atrocities that have been committed, not me saying it, go look at history, the faces are often pale-skinned white men. And so the idea that you would dissolve this man, but you are thinking, oh, let me grab a trophy. Here in the United States, it could be the testicles of a Black man. Why you all are so interested in Black man's balls, I don't know. But anyway, you take his tooth. And I guess we should be grateful that he preserved this tooth. But it also took a Belgian suing in their court for this tooth to be returned. I guess if it could be done once, if I can find a silver lining in this, it would be that we should go and sue for everything else and get all our other remains back, because there is something sacred about being able to provide a peaceful resting place for the remains, the physical remains of our loved ones and our ancestors. And there's absolutely power in those remains. And so Africans, let's never stop fighting. African leaders, though they may come for your bodies, understand that your spirits live on, because we speak of Lumumba a lot more than we speak about the people who betrayed him, including those who dissolved his bodies, whose names are not known, although we should probably put their names and their grandchildren and great-grandchildren's names up. And by the way, I should say that on Women in Resistance, the next quarter, we will be covering Lumumba's wife. So if you want to learn more about that family and that extraordinary woman, tune into Women in Resistance.
Yes. Brother Kharim, your take?
I find it very, very arrogant from the people we call development partners who are not developed yet. The idea that after 40 years, you are going to return a tooth and what? And we dance over it?
A tooth.
No one is held accountable for such things. The idea that I'm giving you a casket with a tooth and you're going to celebrate and you're not going to acknowledge the pain. You're not really paying any kind of substantial amount in reparations for that. For what Lumumba could have been for his people. It's a joke. It's a mockery. It's really total mockery that, okay, now, after all these years, we are going to decide to give you the tooth. We found someone who had it. Like the audacity to come to the DRC where millions of people were killed by leopard. We have nothing to show, but you have a tooth to show. You are not even acknowledging how much you've looted from us, and you're returning a golden tooth. That's all you're giving us. Even when you have taken most of our artifacts in your museums, and as you're getting money, all you have to give us is that, and we should celebrate. I think there is the Africans to have a new kind of revolution on the continent, to reclaim the continent, to make sure that we own each and everything that is under our ground. Otherwise, we are being mocked. we are being mocked. At the anniversary, I think Belgians should be on their knees with buckets of money in terms of reparations to the damage that they have done to the DRC. But nobody ever talks about Belgians in that type of way. They are like, okay, we are here in Europe, we are good people. It's over. We should move on. But at whose expense?
Brother Kharim.
Yes.
Listen, when Nigeria had its centennial celebration, they chose 100
greatest
people,
Nigerian.
100 greatest Nigerians to celebrate, right? Do you want to know who made the list?
Guess. Take a guess. No. Take a guess. Sister, tell him who made the list.
Maybe you should answer, Adesoji. Please tell us who made the list.
I do. No, you tell him. No, you shouldn't come out of my mouth. Because
Lord, in quotes, Lord Lugard.
Lord Frederick Lugard.
Lord Frederick Lugard, who oversaw the quote-unquote amalgamation of Nigeria. And his girlfriend turned wife, who wrote the national anthem, which was then changed, and now Tinubu brought back the old one.
National anthem.
At great expense. By the way, yes, they were honored.
So we're singing the old national anthem.
We're singing the old national anthem written by the colonizers, and we are honoring them as one of the 100 most important, most celebrated Nigerians in the history of Nigeria. Yes, the colonizer.
Don't worry, you're hearing it. Yeah, you're hearing it.
So, no, we will probably lay out red carpets for Belgium.
Yeah.
And say thank you so much
for all you've done.
For civilizing us. Because otherwise, oh my God, we might still have our environment. We may still have our families intact. We might actually have ancestors who did not have their limbs cut off. This would have been horrible. So we thank you for all the oppression. Can you come again? Because right now, Nigerians, I believe that if they took a vote and said Trump is thinking of taking over Nigeria, I'm telling you, it will be close.
Yeah.
The percentage of Nigerians that will say, come and take over. I'm not kidding. I am not kidding. I wish I were. Now, when he comes, he will hear, as we will sing, because we are a recalcitrant kind of people. But, yeah, we are that brainwashed in Africa.
Yeah.
Because the whole education.
I wouldn't say we as a people are really brainwashed, but because we have leaders who are more interested in the optics of sitting on the front line, who are more interested in feeding their stomachs and looking at the next election cycle, they don't normally think about the damage that some of the decisions they make, because most of the times they think, I want to be here. I would have gone already. So they are making these decisions regardless. So that the idea that people would be happy to have a foreign person intervene, I understand the desperation to the people who have been.
Yeah, and it's desperation.
Yes.
It's really desperation.
So that kind of desperation creates an environment of not knowing what happens next. So like, okay, let us cross the river and we'll see what happens. And that's because when you have like autocratic legalism, when all institutions have failed, you don't know what to do after everything falls down, because the institutions that were supposed to be checks and balances on each other have also fallen. So for a country like Uganda, where you have the president appointing the electoral commission, where you have the president appointing the chief of defense forces, where you have the president appointing the chief of police, where you have to have all these centralized powers within the executive, that even the parliament that is supposed to be checking on the executive thinks they are working for the executive, yet these are two separate entities. So people would be like, "Oh no, we are all getting Museveni's money." I'm like, "No, Museveni is paid by the legislature. The executive doesn't pay the legislature. The legislature pays the executive." But
Is the
because
executive, yeah.
our people think, okay, it's him who is making the shots. You find people in a desperate situation and like, okay, maybe if we find someone who is willing to stand with us and cross the river, then we shall figure it all out. But we cannot take this anymore. We've been suffocated enough. You are fighting with somebody who has a knee on your neck. It's really hard for you to breathe. You're like, if I get a breather, whichever way I get it, I don't care as long as I can take it.
Whichever way I get it.
Yeah.
And I want to thank our audience because we are going over time, but I hope you are finding this conversation interesting, informative enough to stay. Couple of things I want to say, brother. That desperation causes us to, particularly when we do not have a historical lens, to make decisions for what we consider short-term gain, but which have long-term implications, right? And so here in the United States, remember Trump's first term, we heard him say to the Black community, what do you have to lose? Because people were disillusioned with what they felt they had gotten from, quote unquote, the Democratic Party, who they had felt, and arguably so, had taken the Black community for granted, right?
Yeah.
What do you have to lose? And so people were like, well, hey, it's got a point. What? I'm catching hell right now. What do I have to lose? I think we have answered that question, or we are getting the answer to that question in real time. So we need to study history and understand how these despots work. Their playbook is the same. If we understand how it works, when they start using the terms, when they start using the words,
you understand,
okay, I cannot react this way. And then to the second point you made, really quickly, can I share just a little bit about what Museveni has in place in Uganda? He's the president. His wife is the Minister of Education and Sports. His son is the Chief of Defense Forces, head of Uganda's People's Defense Forces. His daughter is the Private Secretary to the President for Household Affairs, very important role. His brother is the retired general and senior presidential advisor on defense and security. His son-in-law is the chair of the Presidential Advisory Committee on Exports and Industrial Development. I could go on. I don't want to take up all the time here. Where else have we seen that happen? What did Trump set up here in the United States of America?
Yes.
Where are his children's in-laws, this, that, all of that? People. We might point at Africa and talk about corruption. It's happening right here. And if anything, African leaders are copying exactly what the colonizers put in place.
Yes.
Before they left. The only difference is they have a lot more money to kind of play around with, and they can also hide their hands, and it's not as noticeable. But they're doing the same thing. That is, I'm not justifying it in any way, but it's really going to take people who see this for what it is across the globe, whether you're African or any other nationality or whatever. We have to overthrow the entire system.
Yes.
It is not working for any of us. Anywhere on the globe. Anywhere.
Before you continue, for those who are coming here for the first time, this is the African News Review, where we look at news stories of Africa in the Western press and get to opine on them. So if you find value here, do like, share, and more importantly, subscribe so that you don't miss such conversations going forward. Kharim, you want to share your final thoughts on the story before we go to the next one?
No, I just wanted to ask us ponder something. Is there a way we can reinvent a new system? This is a question that somebody asked me a couple of weeks ago. That without the capitalistic so is there a system that you think could be more appropriate for Africa in this kind of way that can save the day?
No, there is. It's just that first and foremost, we have to understand what the fabric of the society in which we would want said system to be used existed. The problem is most of our elites study in the West. For those that don't study in the West, we've inherited the colonial educational system. So those systems are not geared towards industrializing our societies. We're basically meant to service the status quo. So you see the civil service, you see doctors who have been trained in Western medicine, you have mechanics who basically have been trained to repair. They've not been trained to reverse engineer. You understand? So you begin to see how the system has been fabricated in such a way that all it does is you come in and all you're doing is just helping to turn the gear. You're not there to like say, okay, let me make a circle so that I can spin that way. You're just coming there, turn the gear. And if you come in and you, quote unquote, shake the system, you will be gotten rid of. You become Amika Cabral. You become Kwame Nkrumah. You become Modibo Keita. You become Ben Bella. You become Thomas Sankara. You become Robert Mugabe. You become, because you are basically shaking the system, not in the ways they've decided that the system ought to engage in. So I hope that answers your question. Okay. So we go to the next question. And again, we're talking about history here. And so the United States has decided to make an ambassador of someone who considers South Africans less than. Why the new U.S. ambassador to South Africa could strain relations even further. Leo Brent Bozell, the conservative activist picked by Donald Trump to represent the United States in South Africa, is preparing to begin his new role as ambassador after being confirmed by the U.S. Senate. A history of opposition to the country's ruling party during his struggle against apartheid makes him a controversial choice. Okay, so what has this gentleman been like? So he's a prominent figure of the American right and a staunch supporter of Israel. Ding, ding, ding. In the 1980s, he belonged to a pressure group opposed to any negotiation with the anti-apartheid African Congress, then led by Nelson Mandela. Our South African government is still led by the ANC in a coalition of 10 parties. Relations with Bozell are expected to be anything but easy. Here is, okay, there's a part here where it says, so he says, in 1989, 5 years before the end of apartheid, the Medical Research Center, of which he created, described the ANC as a pro-communist terrorist organization. All through the 1980s, Bozell was part of the coalition against ANC terrorism, an alliance of more than 30 right-wing American groups. He wrote then that he was proud to be a member, and in 2013, complained on Twitter that the mainstream media mythologizes Mandela, South Africa's first democratically elected president. So anyone that is still in doubt whether Trump is a far-right activist need not look further than this. I don't even know how to describe him. But Brother Kharim, you go first.
I think the relationship between the United States and South Africa has been really, I don't know how to describe it. During the apartheid, US was among the countries that supported the South African government until when apartheid fell. So the relationship is of that of, we see you as the other person who is trying to flex on us, who wants to challenge our power as a white race. It has been just like that for the longest time. I'll give an example. Until 2008, Nelson Mandela was on the US terrorist list. He was still considered a terrorist until 2008.
Terrorist.
For a person of his stature, even when he had been president and former president.
And who was the American president then?
2008, it was George Bush.
No.
2008?
It was Obama.
Obama came in 2008 November. He sworn in 2009 January.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
He was sworn in 2009 January. You see the pattern, and when it came to a time of President Trump talking about getting rid of asylum seekers who were really taking the resources out of the American, they decided, you know what, we are going to have white South Africans come here. we are going to pay for them to come here. And, Musk was right there with him, cheerleading. Oh, we have to do this. This has to be done. And for the longest time, the US and South Africa have been having that kind of relationship. Because when the people of South Africa took back their power, they stated a law where if you're going to invest in their country, there is a percentage of that wealth that has to go to the people in that country.
Yeah.
Given these capitalistic powers, they would feel like, oh, you're taking from us. That's why Elon Musk didn't want to invest, because he felt like, okay, I'm going to be giving back my money to these people. It looks like a slap in the face. Taking someone that is controversial, is not somebody who is going to mend the relationship. You're taking in somebody who is going to even make the situation worse. Given the current situation, given what's going on with BRICS and everything, if I was the US, I'm trying to find someone who can harmonize. But you're going to take someone to South Africa who, from even the local traders, are going to despise. So I don't think it would be a good return on investment in sending someone like that to South Africa.
Sister?
I believe you said Trump and harmonize in the same sentence. Trump does not harmonize nothing.
You have to. We always.
So, you know what? This is going to tie into the next article. America has always wanted to be white only. So most of what they're doing, Reagan, all of them who opposed the ANC and were pro-apartheid, they were doing what they have always done. So let's again just look at the history and not rewrite it. In terms of whoever he's appointed, if we are a sovereign nation, and I know if Comrade Milton Alamadi was here today, he would say there are no sovereign nations in Africa. Simple. Fosa just does it. All the president needs to do, the South African president, is to just not approve the credentials of this person who's been appointed, because I still, as president of my country, get to decide who is going to serve as an ambassador in my country. I get to accept it or not. So if you can say, due to national security reasons, that there's certain people you will not allow into your country, I also, as president of my country, can say, I am not going to allow you to bring in someone who is at an ambassadorial level with all the resources and the apparatus of the state, the United States of America, to come into my country to foment drama and to create more issues and create national security problems for me. So for me, it's a non-deal, but I probably would be very quickly overthrown, executed, whatever. They would probably have a piece of my lock that maybe in 50 years they give to one of my grandchildren if my children decide to have kids. So, but that's how I feel about it, is that this is a non-issue. We are all men. We're all standing on 2 feet, right? Come at us with whatever you're going to come at us. I'm going to just tell a very quick story. In secondary school, I went to boarding school in Nigeria. And boarding school is kind of free for all. I mean, you have some oversight and some, adults who are supervising. But a lot of times it's the young people who are policing themselves, if you want to use that term, police. But anyway, so a young man who I believe had lied about his age, because he looked like a grown man, okay? But he was in the school nonetheless, was interested in me. I wasn't interested in him. He took it very personally, which I guess he should, that I was not returning his interest. And so he plotted that he was going to beat me up. But not only that he was going to beat me up, he was going to do it publicly and do it in such a way that he disrobed me so that there was a public humiliation, right? So I had a couple of options. I could hide and cower in the dorm for the rest of my tenure at school, which was an impossibility, and starve because you had to go to the cafeteria to eat. I could face this bully. So what I did was I put on shorts and I put on some extra t-shirts and stuff underneath, right? So if you tore off the first garment, there would be other reinforced garments underneath. And I got dressed and I went to the cafeteria. And yes, he did accost me. And he was expecting me to cower, whatever. And I was like, no, you want to fight? Fight. and let there be an audience to really bear witness to you, this huge guy, trying to fight me. And people were yelling like, Aya, that's crazy. Like it's literally was suicide. Inside, I knew I was going to be pulverized, but I was going to die on my feet, period. And so I went in like, hey, let's do this. I really kind of was hoping somebody would intervene, but we were going to fight. He did start the fight and he did try to disrobe whatever. And then people did absolutely intervene. But my point though is he bore the shame of trying to come after me in that way. He was disciplined by other people who had some morals, but it also sent a message to other people. And it sent a message to other girls who had also been allowing themselves to be intimidated.
Yes.
Bullies never stop. And so in terms of South Africa or any other country, Trump is not going to stop till you stand up. I don't care if he, quote unquote, publicly humiliates you. In that process, he is humiliating himself. He is showing himself for what he is. But if you don't fight back, by the time you try to fight back, it will be too late. That's all I gotta say.
Okay. So, which brings us to talking of fighting back, the last and final story. And it's about which African country would fight back. And it comes from Radio France International as well. And it's that over half of African states subjected to travel bans or visa bans, visa bans by the US. Of Africa's 54 countries, 36 are now subject to either travel bans or visa bans by the United States. African states are the prime target of President Donald Trump's latest round of travel restrictions, which he says are aimed at protecting national security and preventing visitors overstaying. That's your favorite TSA man. The U.S. State Department this week added several more countries, including Algeria, Cote d'Ivoire, Nigeria, Senegal, Uganda, and Zimbabwe, to its list of states whose passport holders will require to post bonds when applying for a visa. Nationals from this country will now have to pay either $5,000, $10,000, or $15,000 when applying for a U.S. visa, with the amount determined at the time of the interview. Okay. I mean, as if who wants to go first? Who needs their visa? I mean,
I think
Let Brother Kharim go first.
okay.
so. So what is happening with African states? I think it's quite unfortunate that the African nations, as of today, we don't have a face of, if we were to speak about African leaders, who is the face? Who is that gentleman or gentle lady that we can look at and say that's ours? And what that brings.
Could have been, but the men chased her out. I'm sorry, carry on.
They chased her from DC. I know. Yeah. She traded badly with the DC machine. So what is happening? In the absence of that, you need a collective voice. And I remember the last time the African states came here to the US Africa Summit, Leaders Summit, they had resolved that going forward, we are not going to have 50 men go in front of one white person and beg. We are going to choose among ourselves who is going to be responsible for making our case.
Yeah.
But because our interests are different, and because everyone is suspicious and everyone wants to be the good guy, you don't have a unified voice. And this would have been an opportune moment for the African Union to start, not even countries, to lobby for their individual countries, to have the African Union curate some kind of policy on travel with the US. How are we going to move forward? Because what is going to happen is, maybe Kenya is going to come and say, for us, we have been a little bit stable and our people are really doing good. This is what we have to offer. Give us a lift. And then Botswana is going to go and do their own. So what happens to the lowest common denominator? Because they are not doing it to that. They are trying to do it to a nation by punishing the leadership of it. But the person who gets the ultimate the ultimate rebuke is the individual that is going to seek that visa. So that the African nations today, this is their chance through the African Union to lobby unifiably for how this kind of travel is going to be worked upon. Otherwise, you are going to see one individual country, Algeria, we have been good with you guys. We are stable. We don't have people who are leeches. At least give us a break, and that one is going to come through that door. And that doesn't sound like a unified continent. So either they say we are going to step back, or we are going to lobby as one unit. And the reason why I'm saying it's sometimes very hard for things to work is because the people that have loud voices on the African Union coalition are the despots like Museveni. Those are the people they count on. They know, okay, if that one speaks to Trump, we shall listen. Who am I? Me, I've just been there 7 months. I'm not going to be able to stand up to the guy. Maybe let us leave our elders to speak for us. And those are the people that you really don't want to be the face of the continent. If you put a person, if you're going to put a person like Museveni to negotiate this, whose country was kicked out of the AGOA agreement, the African Growth and Opportunity Act. We were kicked out about 2 years ago for human rights violation and corruption. So if you have a country like that not only wants re-entry into AGOA, chances are it is going to pay somebody in Washington to go and lobby for them behind everybody's back and say, you know what, I've been here 40 years. I know some old guy in Kentucky that I've worked closely with. I know some guy from Ohio I've worked closely with, and in Texas, they can push an envelope for me and they give me a backdoor entry. And the rest of you are going to be left. So there is need for us to figure out in 2026, who is the face of African leadership besides the African Union, as you say it? The president of African Union has no mojo. She doesn't have the mandate of the leaders, but not people on the continent are not very excited about such leadership. So you need a leader amongst them, all leaders, maybe 2 or 3, that we think can be trusted to do constructive advocacy for African states.
Sister, your thoughts?
So let me say this. Listen, you can't stay comfortable and gain your liberation, your freedom. And I have family actually on every continent except maybe Antarctica, whatever.
Have you checked?
And so these kind of issues do impact me on a very personal level. We want to be able to travel, visit one another, and so on and so forth. But there are some battles that just need to be fought. But let's first put this in a certain context. Neely Fuller said, if you don't understand white supremacy, everything else you think you understand will only confuse
you. Yeah.
Let's go back to the very beginning of the United States of America. The first U.S. Naturalization Act of 1790 limited citizenship to free white persons. This legally tied belonging and political power to whiteness. The Immigration Act of 1924 further entrenched this bias because they now included national origins quotas designated to preserve a northern and western European demographic majority while excluding Africans and Asians. That was written into their laws. Let's just be very clear about that. So nothing that is happening. I mean, listen, we can have the face of Africa. We can have our, all of the African countries unite. Let us be clear about what whiteness is doing.
Exactly.
Okay? And let us build our own countries, have our own health systems, have our own universities. Our land looks better than theirs, and they will beg to come to our land. So we're not constantly begging to come over here, thinking it's the land of milk and honey. Okay, but let me go back to the history. Although racial bars to naturalization were supposedly removed in 1952, the national origins quotas remained until 1965 with the expansion of, Civil Rights Act and the Civil Rights Movement, right? The Immigration and Nationality Act of 1965 ended explicit racial preference, replacing it with family reunification and skills-based criteria, while introducing per-country caps. So, by the way, if you are an immigrant in the United States, from Latin America, from Africa, and you have ever opened your mouth to talk any crap about African Americans here, you better get on your knees and apologize, because there was a fight that even made it possible for your asses, for you to be able to migrate over here. Let's just get that clear, okay? U.S. immigration policy towards Latin America welcomed their labor, but restricted their permanent legal status. Programs like the Bracero or Braquero program created cycles of migration that were later criminalized through enforcement, right? So here in my community, they will often, when we fill out our impact aid survey, they will say, are you homeless? Are you a migrant worker? All of that. They collect this information, right? Because white farmers actually like the idea of having people who cannot get permanent status.
So they can...
Because it makes you beholden to them. You will take the lesser wages and so on. And of course, you get no benefits, right? Let's talk about after 1965. African nations have still been facing disproportionate visa denials, processing delays, and nationality-based restrictions, even though they pay all of these high processing fees, application fees, and so on and so forth. I didn't do the research for this episode, but if we go and research how much the United States takes in just from visa application fees from Africa, there is a man that you all should go follow, Obeng Darko, Obeng, last name Darko. I interviewed him on Rethinking Freedom. He's in Ghana, and he talks about the absurdity of selling everything you own to raise $10, $15, $20, $30,000 move or pounds to move to the UK or Canada or to the US to come here to be an Uber driver, when you could easily have used that same money to build a business or an industry in your country. But you come here to be a pauper. So today's immigration laws, up until these new bans, were supposedly race neutral, but we know that the outcomes remained unequal, which is why in 1990, they created the diversity visa program, because it acknowledged the systemic imbalance in immigration access. So the bottom line is, America intended to be white only. They intended to use the labor of the Native Americans, kill them off. Okay, the Mexican, okay, black folk. Okay, after that, can we move you guys over somewhere out of this hemisphere? Yes. Yes, they did. Sierra Leone, yes. Oh, can we move you to the Dominican Republic? Abraham Lincoln, who some of you still think saved you. And then it was flood the gates and bring in all your white friends, your neighbors, your cousins, your whatever, right to your family back in the old country and tell them to come. And when they came here, think about the Homestead Act and how many acres of hundreds of acres of land was given for $1 to white families. So yes, all Trump is doing what America has always done. And so we don't need to sound confused, but then African countries need to look at this and say, we don't have to keep begging. Here's the deal. You don't want us to come? We don't have to come. But here's the other thing we need to recognize. Someone says they want our culture. How do they put it? Something about they want our culture, but they don't want us, our burden, or something like that. You want our resources.
That was John Henry Clark, who said
you want all the resources from Africa. You even want our food. You even try to patent our drums. But you don't want us, the people, except, of course, as Kharim said, when you need us to go fight your wars for you, when you need some expendable bodies. Yep. What if Africa decided, you know what? fine, you guys want to isolate us? Let's do like China actually did for a while. Close borders and feed ourselves.
Yeah.
Rely on ourselves. We want to go on vacation. We don't go spend our money in Paris. We spend our money next door. And let's see what we look like in 20 to 30 years. And by the way, if you think you own land in Africa, all of y'all white folks still in Africa, yeah, y'all got to go. How about
Exactly.
that?
Go home.
And
Go
you know
home.
what? And I'll be willing to go back too.
Yeah. Go home.
Under those circumstances, let's all go.
Let's go home. Speaking of going home,
yeah, that's it, Karen. They want the rhythm, but not our blues. Yeah, you got it.
We've come to the end of African News Review. This one has been very informative. Excuse me. Oh my God, we've got a croak. First things first, I would like to thank June, Ona, and Robert for the thanks. Thank you very much. And yeah, we did get a very high number today. 80 people are actually watching. Yeah. I'm like, whoa, okay.
Whoa.
I think it was probably Brother Kharim that brought them all. You know, he's got lots of fans out there. So yeah, we've come to the end of African News Review, and we would love to have Brother Kharim back. But any final thoughts, Brother Kharim?
Thank you so much for really sharing the platform. I'm very glad I was part of this conversation, and I'm looking forward to be again sometime. To my fellow Ugandans here in the diaspora, the fight is still on, hanging there. To the ones on ground, it's time for us to stand and demand our victory and make sure we hold the regime accountable. But if you're here in the United States, I must stress this. We are not begging, but we are asking the U.S. government to hold their puppets accountable. We are asking them to stop funding the military of Uganda. They have been really, really cozy. We are asking the government of United States through the financial institutions of World Bank and IMF for the next quarter to put the money that is going to Museveni on hold until we get everything sorted out. We are not on our knees, but this is us fighting for our country. This is us pushing back and holding the powers that be to the account. So keep on making those calls to your representatives. If you're living here in the United States, keep on making those calls to the Office of the State Department and asking them to hold Museveni accountable. We shall continue to monitor the situation as it unveils, and we call upon our old friends of Uganda, Stand With Uganda, talk about what's going on. A number of people are still being abducted as of now. Social media is not full effect, and the internet is not in full effect in Uganda. So we ask all friends of Uganda to move the message, share the information like this to your friends, and see that's how we shall make an impact. So with this, I will stop here. And once again, I want to thank you for sharing the opportunity, for allowing me to be part of this, and I'll be looking forward to be here again.
Of course. It's open house. Hold on, sister.
Just want to say thank you to all the audience, all our listeners for hanging on for a whole 30 extra minutes. Thank you. You all are the best. Brother Kharim, you are such a wonderful addition. Really loved your insights, your breadth of knowledge. Hope you will come back. Such a pleasure to have spent this time with you. Brother Adesoji, thank you for always, all that you do and your leadership. And to everyone, hey, y'all, we got to keep fighting. Keep learning, keep growing, keep fighting. Absolutely.
As the great man Kwame Nkrumah would say, Africa must unite. So it begins one story at a time. And obviously, we must learn to listen to each other. We all have viewpoints. But sometimes when you stand behind the elephant, all you see is the tail. You stand in front, you see the trunk. But if you stand afar from it, you understand you all have a common problem. So that's one way of looking at things. And so until next week, it's good night and God bless. Thank you. That's a wrap for this week on the African News Review podcast. We hope you are leaving with a clearer, more truthful picture of Africa. Remember, every story has another side, and we're here to uncover it. Don't forget to join us next Sunday at 12 p.m. Eastern as we continue to challenge the narratives and reclaim Africa's voice. If you've enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe, share, and leave us a review. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep seeing Africa for what it truly is.